Okay, I think I'm going to give it a start then, especially seeing as we are recording this, so latecomers will be able to yeah, catch up after the fact as well. Great, thanks all for showing up. In case this is your first virtual Cafe Sci, what we'll have is a talk first, which will then be followed by a longer Q&A session, so you'll get to ask all your questions. We'll do that by you putting the questions in the chat and I can feed them through, or if you do want to pose them in person, do feel free to just come on and unmute yourself after the talk, or during the talk, to be fair. I think we've got a manageable crowd. So yeah, let's try and make this engaging and interactive. So today we've got a talk by Dave from the Kernow Weather Team. I have to say another committee member, Dr. Roger Wood, organized this for us. So kudos to him, but it's my pleasure today to introduce Dave to you. I'm sure most of you will probably have heard of the Kernow Weather Team and seen them on social media at least. So at this point, I'll just hand over to you, Dave, and let you tell us more about what you're doing.
Thank you for introducing me. Hi, I'm Dave from Kernow Weather Team. I'm a founder of a big Facebook group. Currently, at the minute, we have roughly about 32,000 people, which is not too bad for a little group in Cornwall. Weather is never, at the beginning of my life, my favourable things. I've never really liked it because I was a lorry driver and I was in the army, and it was one of my biggest pet hates, so I really didn't like it. Then I had a big accident about 10 years ago, which took my HGV away. Then I started to quite enjoy weather and find a hobby in weather. So that's how I sort of started, and and you have to bear with me. This is my first time I've ever done one of these as well, so please bear with me. I'm hoping this works as well. Has it come up? Brilliant.
That's looking great.
Right. So my presentation is: who are the Kernow Weather Team? Is the weather changing in Cornwall? How is the weather changing around the world? How satellites help us with doing weather forecasting? And what will happen when the seas warm up around Cornwall? That's quite a big one as well. That's quite a scary one, the last one. So Kernow Weather Team was established in 2017 by three friends. Well, me, my wife, and a friend. We were sitting down one evening and we thought to ourselves, there's not really much on Facebook or social media what covers Cornwall, so we just started a little Facebook group up. And then over 5 years, it's grown to 32,000 followers, which is quite scary for us. And when you're doing forecasts for people from the RNLI who rely on us, especially when the weather's bad, so Coast Guard Rescue, we get asked a lot from them. More so when they have missing people and they've got bad weather, they ask a lot. We're covered, local newspapers have used us quite a lot. We media, radio stations as well is a big one. We currently supply an online radio station called Chaos Radio. Nuki Radio is another one we do daily forecasts for. Pirate FM uses us quite a lot, more so when there's extreme weather. BBC Cornwall, there's so many other outlets what have used us. Normally we can do radars for Cornwall, weather, own weather warnings for Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, but it's just as easy. I can do anywhere in the world. And matter of fact, I have a couple of years ago, I had to do quite a scary one for a lady in Darwin who messaged our page and asking us about a typhoon, a cyclone, what was heading their way. And I sort of told her to sit still, don't move while there's evacuating everyone, panicking, like, hope I got it right. And I actually did get it right, so it wasn't too bad. I was quite glad on that one. That was, they were predicting in Darwin 130 mile an hour winds, and they evacuated, but they got about 40, 50 mile an hour in the end. So it wasn't too bad for them. Oh, wrong way. Weather's got to be one of the most main talked about in our lives. Don't matter who you talk to, where you go to, people either say it's too warm, too cold. And more so in Cornwall, quite windy, quite wet. Some sunny days, mostly foggy and misty. Sorry. Yeah, like I said, we have grown quite a lot. We've done quite well on Facebook and all the other social medias. We try to pride ourselves being more unique than a lot of the other weather people you see on Facebook, because we try to explain the science behind weather as well. So from what a rain cloud is right down to how heavy the big cumulonimbus thunderclouds are. And believe me, they're quite heavy and they hold a lot more water than people think as well. So it's really interesting, really. Weather is, it's the science behind it is quite good. Through lockdown, I got sponsored to do my degree, but I actually done it in University of Oklahoma. So I've done mine abroad. That's more for extreme weather than the weather we get over here, but it does cover most of our weather over here, so it's brilliant to cover that. My future goals is to be paid for what we do. We have set up our own CIC, and from a hobby, what used to be 1 to 2 hours a day is now turning up to be 10, 12, 13 hours a day easy, and we can easily get into 37, 38 hours straight off non-stop when we get extreme weather events. My goals as well is to document and go to places in America to see hurricanes, like the big category 4s, the big category 5s, and document it all the way through from the beginning right to the end. So for me, studying it from my bedroom in the house, right to getting the airport, to going to where the impact is, right through the hurricane, probably seeing me under the sheets in the hotel somewhere, the sheet over my head being petrified with like 200-mile-an-hour winds, but I don't know how I'd react to them actually being there, but I should be all right. Then actually to see how they rebuild after the houses have been destroyed and why they actually stay there, because you see a lot of online things on TV and on documentaries. You always see the impact of a tornado, you always see the hurricane coming in, and you see a little bit of damage, but you never see how the communities rebuild, how they get through it all. And that is my biggest goal, to get there and to do that. But it's just getting that sponsorship to go there and be brave enough to be through like 150 to 265-mile-an-hour gusts. I've seen videos of that where it rips trees apart, but it spins them around, and it's quite scary to me, that is. But like I said, I don't know until I really get there what it would be like. But oh, keep going the wrong way. Is the weather changing here in Cornwall? I'm afraid to say it is. It's more so the last 5 years. This is just this year more. The average air temperature, I'm sitting about 13 degrees through January. So 8 to 13 degrees. So it's not that cold. And the sea temperatures of 12 degrees. My friend who lives on the Isles of Scilly, who helps us out, studies a lot of buoy data. And she said this year, the sea hasn't dropped much below 12, 13 degrees, which is quite concerning for us who do weather, especially more now the sea gets warmer, comes a lot more storms. Comes the warmer temperatures, comes the days of frost. It was only 5 days of frost in January. So it isn't that much. And I think we had a few flakes of snow. It's not much at all considering where we are. I know we're more warmer here, so you can see on the Met Office charts, they're a bit different to how we use. I've got my own weather station and I use local weather stations to get more of an idea of weather data. But even on theirs, they're showing you 12 degrees just in Cornwall. And I know the Isles of Scilly were just slightly warmer. They're up about 13 degrees. So. And then we move into February. That was quite interesting because that was another warm month. As you can see on here, average temperatures, again, we're sitting up at 13, 14 degrees and with highs of 15s. It was really warm. Frosty days, we had 2. But February was really unique because we had 3 named storms back to back, which was really unusual in February because we had Dudley, Eunice, and then we had Franklin. Dudley didn't really impact Cornwall. Eunice was the one what shocked us because the Met Office actually put a yellow weather warning out a week and a half before the storm was even started coming a low pressure out, and we were shocked. Then about a week before it impacted Cornwall, they put it as a amber weather warning, and then 2 days beforehand it was one of the first red ones for wind impact. We didn't get much rain from Eunice, sorry, because we had to, because she sat at the southern tip of Ireland and she come across Ireland, across the middle of the UK. So we was on the southern flank, so we got the bulk of the wind and the strongest of the wind. The northern side, as like Scotland and that lot, they got the rain, they got the wind as well and the snow. But the strongest gust we recorded on our weather station was 97 mile an hour. That was not the strongest that we've recorded, but yeah, that was quite an eventful day for us. I done 37 hours non-stop that day for 2 days, just keeping people updated. We had so many scary stories from that one as well, with people's roofs being torn off, trees. And the thing is, what always baffled me was, I always thought solar panels on people's houses were supposed to be secure, but this storm ripped off plenty of them, and that quite shocked me as well. I think February we had a few frosty days. It wasn't that bad in general. You can see by the Met Office again, it was quite a warm month in general. It's not too bad. And then we go into March. March was another extremely warm month. I think we had 3 days of frost, highs of about 17 degrees, and not an average of between 11, maybe 12 degrees. And sea temperatures are starting to get a little bit warmer. It's creeping up to 13 degrees, but if you put your toes in it, it doesn't feel like it. It was not too bad of a month. It was rather dry as well. I don't think we had much happened in March, really, storm-wise. I think it was quite a boring month. We was dominated by a big area of high pressure through the month. We had a lot of cloud as well. So I was looking up the sunshine hours. We didn't have that much sunshine because of the cloud bank sitting over us. And we did have a lot of mist and fog, what's quite normal. And our friend on the old Sicily don't like it much because then their planes don't fly and it causes them problems as well. And then, well, April's a bit of a change, a little bit, because we actually had more frosty days in April and we did all this year, with the air temperature sitting at an average of 14 degrees. And with highs of sitting at 19, so it was quite warm, but we had 12 days of frost, so it was warm days, really, really cold nights. And some parts of East Cornwall, and it was up near Launceston, was actually most nights dropping down to -3s and -5s, so it was quite chilly from quite a lot of the time. It quite shocked us, like especially for April. And we had a little bit of snowflakes, but nothing major through then. But comparing this to 5 years ago, it is getting warmer. It really is. So short term, a little bit. Long term, climate change, yes, it is. It is changing. The weather is changing in Cornwall. The air temperature is getting warmer now. I've just done a big study this week on it, looking at the average air temperature down here. It really is getting quite considerably warmer, and it has done for many of years. Over the last 5 years, it really has. In the last 2 years, it's got considerably warm. And March and April was also were the 5th driest on record as well, with the actual rainfall, which was quite shocking to me, actually. These are the Met Office rain charts. They're different to how we measure it. We do it, like I said, through local weather stations. So it varies from parts of Cornwall to where you are. Like if you're on the Isles of Scilly, are really dependent on rain. They need a lot of rain. And at the moment, their rainfall is so low, they've had to use another pipeline to their big machine, what turns salt water into fresh water. Because if their wells get too low, it will end up starting filling up with salt water, and they're really be into trouble. So they've had to have a second pipeline put in to help them with that. But through January and February, 45 mils average in January and 72 in February. Considering in February we had 3 named storms, it wasn't really that wet. And if you look at it 5 years ago, these were quite of our wettest months, but now we're seeing less and less rainfall in Cornwall. You start looking to the east of the UK, as you can see in January, they hardly had any rain at all, and that's quite a shock. Hardly any rain in parts of London and Bedfordshire. But if you're up in Scotland, they had like 500 mils on there, and it was rather wet in January and February as well. And then we go into March and April this year. Once again, the rainfall really hasn't been that much. In March, it was an average of 40 mils, and April just 20 mils. It was the 5th driest on record, with some parts of Cornwall seeing 60% less rainfall than 5 years ago. We're getting warmer temperatures, so we're going to start seeing less rainfall in some areas. And once again, Isles of Scilly, I've really had it this year. I was speaking to our friend again on there, and she said this year there's about 75%, maybe a bit more less rainfall this year so far, left or down. And to me, that's quite a lot. And now the sea temperatures are going up as well. That can cause quite an impact, especially for Cornwall as well. That's quite scary for us. Please, if you have any questions, far away. We have noticed since I've been doing Kernow Weather Team, the weather has changed, and we're starting to see more storms in the middle of August. Last year we had Storm Evert, which started out in the Atlantic out to the west. That was after we had our very first amber weather warning for a heat wave issued by the Met Office ever in the UK. And we were seeing average daily temperatures was about 28, 29, and sometimes was getting in the high 30s. The highest we got on our weather station was 32.1. So it was quite warm. Then our sea temperatures shot up to sitting about 21 degrees. Then on the buoy data for about 2-3 weeks. Then Storm Evert was a big area of high pressure, what was sitting out to the west, and then it rapidly intensified into the storm. And that one come in right when all the holiday makers were on holiday. We put our warnings out just before the Met Office did. Then we used the official ones as well as our own. That one was quite a scary night for the whole team, because we had families on their first holidays away, where they're asking us advice. Should we go home? What should we do? And we're just trying to explain to people, just get in your car, get your children, get your belongings, go in the car. Tents can be replaced, lives can't be. It was quite scary for us, more because we saw the impact and the damage that storm done, because it was more on the north coast. That was the biggest impact of the storm ever, what caused the main problems of it. But getting back to the rainfall, it's, as you can see by the Met Office, we're hardly getting any rainfall at all. It's hardly anything now. It's dropping down, and now we're starting to go into the summer months. Rainfall will get less and less now. Then hopefully when we start getting October, November, December, we should get a lot of rainfall to start filling up our reservoirs. I was looking on some other charts where our rivers and our reservoirs are quite actually low now, and that's without us going through what the Met Office predict quite a warm and hot summer this year. It's hard to say if it is or not, because the weather charts do conflict with each other still. Short term, you're not too bad. 3 or 4 days, you can be really accurate. 5 days, not too bad. Medium. Anything over 5 days, unless you've got a Met Office £1 trillion computer, then it's hard for us to predict. But we're not too bad. We haven't got it wrong as of yet. I mean, not too bad. So weather's changing around the world. As you can see on here, crisis in California already. 2 of the largest reservoirs are critically low, and it's the drought season's only just begun. The one to the right, you can see the bridge 2 years ago had plenty of water, and then the next picture next to it was only taken not so long ago, and they're really low on water. And it's the same to the other reservoir to the left. They are having the same problems as well with drought. There's quite a few places in America. There's a big reservoir in Iraq as well, which is completely empty. In the last 5 years, it's just drained, and it's not rained, really hasn't rained enough, and they are in big troubles. It's not even the impact of these countries. Brazil is the strangest thing I've been witnessing. Some parts of Brazil have had months of torrential downpours and flooding and real big problems. But you go to other parts of Brazil and Mexico, and they've had no rainfall. They've got droughts, the big major wildfires, and the tornadoes. It's really bizarre how one area changes to another area. It really does change. These are from, my friend sent me these from Oklahoma, and they were saying this is where I'd love to go and chase the storms to see the big change. They were telling me that over the last 6-7 years, the hailstones are getting from small, like tennis ball size, right up to 2.5-3 kilogram weight in hailstones, and they're coming through people's roofs. And you can see the damage they do to houses. And the image to the right is what a tornado done to a piece of fence panel. It actually put it, and that was in about, I think it's about 9 inches. It pushed it into the tarmac in the grounds. It's quite an impact. It's quite scary. Next one made me laugh when I got sent this one. This was in Oxford in America. A house got struck by lightning, and it went through the roof, coming through the ceiling, and actually hit the toilet and blew it up, as you can see to the image to the right. It did make me giggle when I got sent this one, and it just shows you that you're not safe anywhere from lightning. You're really not. It really does. It can be everywhere. Anyway, getting back to weather, Cornwall, the UK mainly, is really in the wrong location where it is. We're sitting on the wrong latitudes. We sat south a bit, the jet stream could move around us. It could stay more north of us. So we would have a lot more warmer weather, more controlled weather. But at the moment where we sit, the jet stream comes from the Atlantic, as we all know from America, which influences a lot of our weather, comes through the UK, through Cornwall, out to Europe. And we're seeing this year, it's been sat more in the middle of the UK. So that's why we've been seeing more. Cornwall have seen less rain because all the low weather systems have sat to the north of the jet stream. So poor Scotland's had a lot of the cold weather, snow, rain, and really cold weather, while Cornwall and Devon and parts of the other UK have had quite a mild year. It hasn't really been quite cold this year. Last year was much the same. I can't remember it being that cold here, and I can't remember really scraping my car off that much in Cornwall. It does change a lot in Cornwall. If you're in the west of Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, it's a lot warmer. You start going up to Launceston, Bodmin, it does get a little bit cooler. but they do get warmer temperatures in the summer as well up there, which I think is brilliant as well compared to us. This is the other one I always talk about, is the actual UK annual temperatures. And you can see this is the magic barcode as the Met Office have put out about 6 months ago, and they've updated it this year. The globe and the UK is getting warmer. It's getting warmer quite considerably and fast now. And it's quite scary because the impact it's going to do, not just for Cornwall, it's going to be around the world. Rising sea levels is a biggest threat for the Isles of Scilly. If you've been there, when you get off the Slonian and you walk into the town, it's really low down, and they reckon within 5-6 years, if the tides keep getting higher and higher, which they are, that will start to flood right through there very shortly. When they get high spring tides and they get rough weather like the south, it's got to be a southwesterlies with a low pressure that causes the Isles of Scilly so many problems there. When, like, I've seen videos and pictures of it, and it's quite scary for them. And more so for us, with rising sea levels, you've got all your coastal areas, you're going to see a lot more flooding. But with the temperatures going up and your sea temperatures going up, not only are we going to start seeing more unusual species in our sea, we will see a lot more rain. Sounds weird, I know, but that because it produces storms, it produces low weather systems. And here comes the part which has always scared me. If our sea temperature can average in the summer about between 19 and 20 degrees, when we get the hurricanes from America, that is warm enough to actually hold it as a proper category 1 hurricane. And we're only talking about a 2 degrees change in Cornwall in our sea temperature, and we could start seeing category 1s, maybe even category 2s. And we're not far off of them now. This year, the sustained winds, what was caught in Cornwall, was 73.9 mile an hour. It was near 1 mile an hour off of a category 1 hurricane. That was this year. And we had hurricane force gusts of like 90, 100 mile an hour quite widely for a few hours in Cornwall in February this year. In 2019, we had Hurricane Lorenzo. That's when Kernow Weather Team become quite famous in the media. We put our own storm warnings out that this hurricane couldn't make up its mind what it was doing out in the Atlantic. It was doing circles for about 3 or 4 days. Then it come trundling along, got onto the jet stream, caught on, and it hit Cornwall quite hard. We recorded, and you can look this one up, we recorded on our weather station a gust of 113 mile an hour, and that's in sort of mid Cornwall. West Cornwall had 112, and quite widely in Cornwall we had over 112, 115 mile an hour gusts. But once again, we're just about half a mile an hour off of it being a category 1. We're not sure why the Met Office doesn't put out why they're not category 1s or why they're up that far. We're not sure if they're scared to actually tell people it is a category 1. We're getting the gusts of a hurricane, but we're not getting the other parts of a hurricane. It's the sustained winds, so the constant blowing winds are just all over the place. They sit between, this year it was between 50 and 73, but for about 8 minutes we had 74 mile an hour, and it was just that fraction off to get that category 1. So we are getting there, and with the rising sea temperatures we are going to get them. So that's the scariest bit for me anyway. I don't know if anyone else finds that quite scary. And Cornwall, I don't think we're built myself to take that sort of winds and destruction, what it can cause in such with devastating winds. Stop this. That's what that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. I'd say that was a great debut to giving a talk.
Yeah.
And you actually completely already answered a question that I wrote down, which I was going to ask you what's so worrying about the sea temperatures going up. But in this last bit, I think you've very summarized that very well.
The biggest concern for us would be seeing hurricanes. You see more storms, and it would be a lot warmer. The sea temperatures do reflect to Cornwall, so we would get a lot more warmer temperatures. And once again, when you look on the Isles of Scilly, their average temperatures are a lot warmer than us. Generally all year round, they're a lot warmer. When I speak to our friends that own there, when we say frost, she laughs at me quite a lot. When I said it's cold here and they're just walking around still in their shorts and t-shirts, because it's just not that cold to them. Like, that's the more concerning for them, is like hurricanes, the sea temperatures warming up. And I'm only on about 2 to maybe 3 degrees at maximum, and that's quite not that far away now. When you start looking and researching it, I'm only talking 3 or 4 years, maybe less, if things don't change.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this talk now anyway. Now I'd like to invite everyone in the audience, if you've got a question, do just pop it in the chat. I see there's been a few questions and a bit of discussion already, which is awesome. If you do want to ask a question in person, do indicate that, or just unmute yourself and speak, or raise your hand virtually. I can ask you to come on. Otherwise, I'll be reading out your questions to Dave. And now, even though we've got a few questions in the chat already, I'm going to use my chair's prerogative to ask you one of my own ones first. I was interested in how you go about doing your forecasts, if you could talk us through that, and what data you use to get your forecasts.
We use what they call GFS charts, which give us, they're actually American charts, which worked brilliant for the UK. There is European weather charts, which they conflict quite a bit with American charts. So we use the GFS. So we use a lot of our biggest one, we use air pressure. So as you know, you get a big area of high pressure. It's not too bad. You know, it's got to be quite settled, dry, and you've got to get sunny weather. Then you get your low pressures can sit quite near. And then, you know, it's got to be your rain, your wind. It can be foggy, it can be misty. It can be all sorts. We use satellite data as well. That is our biggest one, which is the biggest thing we do use is satellites, which then you read buoy data from aeroplanes, from all sorts. We get our sources from a lot of different things. Because we're sort of voluntary at the minute, we rely on a lot of free ones, and we've been donated a few what we can connect to as well, which really help us out. But they're the European ones. So when we get the lovely southerly winds, or your rain coming up from the south, they're brilliant. They work brilliant. They're the best weather charts you could ever get. But when you start getting anything from the southwest, westerlies, they don't work, because we will look at them and they say, the American ones will say it's going to rain. You look at the European ones and it says it's going to be dry. It really can be so confusing, especially for us. And short term, you're right, you can do today, tomorrow, 3 or 4 days, you're not too far. But when you start looking a week, a month ahead, it can change. You can get your jet stream and you can look at it one day. It could be shown above Scotland. You might have a lovely blocking high where the high pressure stuck over the UK. So you've got to get some lovely warm weather. A day later, you might have a low pressure sitting on top of the jet stream, buckles it, pushes it all the way down over Europe. Then you're going to start getting cold weather because it pulls all the cold air down from the Arctic. And it changes so fast. It really does change quick.
Great, thanks. Yeah, plenty of different sources as well, like you mentioned. So it's not, because you did mention the Met Office and some of their data.
Yeah, we do use UKMO, which is UK Met Office. We do use a lot of their stuff. It's more so their fax charts, which are their shipping charts, because that would tell if you've got a warm front, a cold front, a occluded front. So you can work out if you've got a cold front coming through and then you've got a warm front coming through, you know it's going to be a bit windy, a bit choppy. You can see what the isobar's doing. If they're really close, you know, it's going to be really windy. It really does help us a lot. So we do use the Met Office charts. And I will actually say we have bowed down, and I have rung them up quite a few times recently, and especially through the storms, asking them their opinion. And I will say they are really, really helpful. And I've explained what we do, and them even more helpful than normal what we had. And I was quite shocked through the 3 named storms, because I was speaking to them, and she was the lovely lady I was speaking to, put me through to their head meteorologist person. And he said, we are about to put a red weather warning out. Sent me all the information, said, but please don't put it on the media because it's not out, it's not public knowledge. And I'm sitting there with all this information, thinking to myself, well, we know it's going to be a red weather warning, but when are you going to actually issue it on the news and so we can put it out? So as soon as they put it out, we gave it a minute, and then we put it out, and we was like, oh, got it. We knew it before all the media stations did. And yeah, it's really good for us. Like, it is and it's not, if you know what I mean. Like, when we have bad weather, we get overly busy, and especially we don't see the snow anymore. It's like gone completely, I think, in Cornwall now.
Yeah, thanks. I could ask so much more in this direction, but I'm gonna go towards the chat now. If anybody else does have any questions, please do put them in the chat. I'm gonna start with what Robin put quite early on in your talk. Robin said he uses a radar data tracking app called Weather and Radar that allows to check cloud patterns in real time. And he's wondering what you think of that app. He says it seems fairly reliable, but it suggests that Cornwall's weather might be particularly hard to predict.
They are, it really is. There's a brilliant one. It's called SAT24. That is got to be brilliant one. It updates every like 10 to 15 minutes. And that's really, really a good one for satellite imagery, for cloud cover and your rain. It covers your rain, clouds, it shows air pressure. That is a really good one. We use that a lot, especially if we've got storms coming in, because you'll see the storm form, and you can get storms. They actually look like hurricanes on there. And when you see them form, you get the tight little circle in the middle, then you get the big tails what come off the end. So SAT24 is a big helpful one.
Awesome, thanks. And then Devi and Robin went on to have a little bit of a discussion and of that in the chat as well, suggesting that maybe it's Cornish microclimates and can play a role in how unpredictable the weather patterns are, and especially the Cornish coastline. Is there anything that you can add to that?
Yeah, the weather is in Cornwall. It's got to be one of the hardest ones to try and predict and try and get it right in certain locations. Like I said, you can go to West Cornwall and it might be sunny. You might go 8 miles up a little bit and it might be raining. And you might go a little bit further up and it could be foggy. It really does change, and the temperature, the sea temperatures as well make an impact of it. And if you're around the coast as well, that gets you your microclimates. And then if you're inland, once again, you get another one. If you're higher up, so like 4 lanes, you're Bodmin Moor, then you got to Launceston and Bude, they are all different weather patterns. And you probably see it yourself. You might go into St Ives, it might be really hot. You look across the bay to Hale, which is what, 44 miles across in the straight line, and it might be raining or it might be foggy. It really does change from one part of Cornwall to the other. And it really does make it so difficult for us to predict the weather. And to do a weather update, what we do every day, you can spend sometimes 2-3 hours looking at different locations, different weather charts, and different, it's quite hard. It really is, because you look at it, you start writing your notes in the morning, then you go to look again in the afternoon, it's changed, so you change your notes again, so you're getting prepared. Then you go back to the evening and you just rip that bit of paper up, throw that away because it's changed again, and just give up. And just, yeah, it's the only best time is the summertime. Then you know 100% normally it's going to be warm. You get that nice blocking high where that high pressure stuck, then you know you're going to get some nice weather then.
Right, cheers. So do you reckon that this unpredictability as well is mainly due to how the coastline is just so rugged here? I mean, now in comparison to other parts of the UK, say, is that what makes Cornwall special?
Yeah, that really does. Yeah, Yeah, it's more because we're surrounded by sea. I know Devon is, but they're a lot more landmass than us. We're quite narrow. So that really does cause us a lot of problems having the sea sitting around us. And I find that more causes problems for us as well.
Yeah, great, thanks. We've just had another question come in from Devi, asking where do you want to see your business going in terms of your offerings to your target audiences, and also adding what support do you feel you'll need as a business?
We've only just registered as a CIC, and we've just got a app which I built myself. It's not brilliant. It's only on Google Play at the minute because Apple are a bit expensive and it comes out of all our pockets. We're hoping to go around to eventually get some either sponsorship or some funding to go around to schools and explain what a cloud is to more the younger people, and what a cloud is, what it can do, how heavy a big thundercloud is. And when you've got your big thunderheads, then big towers what go right up in the sky and they look like anvils, every square meter is a litre of water. So that gives you an idea. They can go up 4 or 5 miles up in the sky. They go up quite a way. And one, what we call thunderhead or cauliflower cloud, your cumulonimbus, they could be 1.3, 1.4 million tons in water. That's a lot of water just floating above your head when you think about it. It is quite scary, but a cloud only stays up in the sky for 15 minutes. It's constantly falling to the sky. If you've got a phone and you've got timer lapse, you put it on a cloud and you'll see them fall into the sky eventually. It's fall into the ground, sorry. That it's quite interesting there. It don't last long. Yeah, we'd love to educate and go around and talk to younger people on weather and storms and climate change, what they can do while they're younger, and if they act sort of while they're younger, their futures might be not as bad as it wants to be. We like to all sorts with surf schools, give their weather information. It's just funding for us so we can get more information out to a lot more people. Books is the other one we wanted to do as well, weather books. And like I said, my biggest one would be to go abroad and to document hurricanes. That is my biggest one. But like I said, I'd probably get there and I would probably sit and hide under a quilt and shake when it's like 200-mile-an-hour winds. But I probably wouldn't. I'd probably find it brilliant sitting there videoing it, then actually being in the eye of a hurricane, going outside, being in the eye while it goes over, then go back in the building and putting your GoPros outside and document it as much as you could. Yeah, so we're trying to get there, and more to help the emergency services as well. And they do message us quite a bit, like especially when we've got bad weather. Can you give us an up-to-date radar? Can you give us an up-to-date information which way the wind's coming from? And this year as well, we had quite good news. We had Gig Festival. Was it Gig Festival? Yeah, in the Isles of Scilly with gig racing. We, Our Lady on the Isles of Scilly, done all the weather forecasts for that. And also we've been asked to do the Royal Cornwall show this year as well.
That's fantastic.
We're getting our names out there now, and we're just trying to push ourselves to get bigger and better, get more equipment and stuff as well, because we only work from my bedroom. That's our office, and we'd like our own little office as well eventually, so we can have more equipment and have green screens. I have got a green screen, but it's on my bedroom wall, and I don't think my wife appreciates it much on the bedroom wall. There'll be green screen set on there, but then we can start doing our own like Met Office style weather forecast. I have tried, and it does work quite well, but I think in having that extra space would help us to do that.
Oh, so that all sounds great, Dave. Roger, I have seen that you've got your hand up, but seeing as Devi has put some other things in the chat just for this, I'll get to that first. Devi, I was wondering if you wanted to maybe come on to ask those two things directly.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks. And sorry I was late. I was rushing home from work, so I could listen in at home. Thanks, Dave. It's a really interesting talk. I know I met you at the Eden Project event back in February. We had a really brief chat. And I just want to know a little bit more about your business and kind of what support you felt that you need. I know the Smartline project, which is a European funded project, they do support Cornish SMEs and charities looking at developing digital innovations for communities. So I don't know if you've approached Smartline or if you've heard of Smartline. If you like, I can put you in touch with someone from there and you can have a little talk about, you know, options. I don't know if you've gone to Cornwall Council about support, the Growth Hub, places like that.
No, we've never thought about trying with people like them. Cornwall Council, we have thought about getting hold of them, but we don't know who. That's a lot of our biggest problems. Like, we've got these ideas, but we don't really know who to go to talk to. That is our biggest letdown, I suppose. Like, we have loads of ideas. We've got notepads for them. Like, we'd like to do this and do that, but we're like, who do we actually go to talk to? Like you said, go to the council, but we're not sure who to talk to.
Sure. Have you tried the Growth Hub? That might be a good starting point.
No, I have been told about them. I have written them down. That is one of my ones I've got to contact very, very soon.
I'm sorry, that might be a good starting point, because obviously, you know, big organizations, and we have that at the university as well, you know, vast organizations. And I was listening into an industry partnership talk from someone, and they were saying, you know, you have to know who to talk to get the right answer. So I guess it's just trying to find out who you need to talk to and persist in your questions until you get to the right person. But certainly with the Growth Hub, they would be very helpful. And I can also introduce you to someone from the Smartline project that might be able to point you in the right direction as well. And talk about if the specific digital innovations, certainly your app, they might be able to, especially if it's for you to service communities, for community health and well-being, then absolutely, yeah,
that'd be brilliant. I'd really appreciate if you could do that.
Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Dave. I'll be able to put the two of you in touch afterwards if you don't already have each other's contact details. Otherwise, we'll move back on to questions. And Roger, you had your hand up earlier.
Yes, thank you. And Dave, thank you very much for your talk this evening. It was fascinating. I'm just going to follow on from very quickly from what Debbie said there, but if we hang on afterwards, I can give you a couple of names at Cornwall Council that would be a good starting point. But my main question or pointer is that given that we have the University of Exeter with their Centre for Ecology and Conservation and the Environment and Sustainability Institute, have you had any opportunity, or are you looking at an opportunity to maybe see how your weather data and everything that you are gathering, all that information, could be maybe used to support science looking at marine migration, marine movement? I know for example, that one of the things that was lacking within the recent State of Nature Cornwall report was a lack of metrics about certain marine migration movements and seabirds as well. So is this something you're thinking about or have had a chance to do?
I have thought about that, but once again, it's just getting in contact with the right people. And with getting with the sea, we have been in contact with Spaceport Cornwall, and we're quite lucky we will be able to get some data from them as well, from Melissa Falk. She was just waiting for her to get back to me again, but we will be able to get data from that, which will help us with the sea temperatures as well. And like I said, we get quite a lot of data. My weather station is quite an up-to-date, sophisticated, and it's on 24/7. It really never goes offline, and it collects as much data as it can. And I get data from other weather stations in Cornwall, so I'm constantly getting as much data as we can. To pass that information on to help other people would be amazing and would be brilliant.
Thanks, Dave. Seeing as we've not got any other questions in the chat at the moment, I'm going to ask another one of mine, if you don't mind. So you're obviously very motivated by extreme weather events and the impacts that they can have on people, which is great. I wanted to ask of quite the opposite. So is there anything extremely mundane about weather that you find very interesting?
Me, it's got to be clouds.
Clouds, yeah.
Yeah, it really has to be. You can tell a lot by a cloud. You may look up and look at a cloud and think, boring, grey cloud. I can look up at it and think, it's going to rain. It's a nimbus cloud, which is your Latin for rain. Then you get your extreme clouds, as we call them, like your mammatus clouds. They actually are Latin for mammary gland. So that's because they bulge down. They're really unusual looking clouds. But yeah, but the team is split up. I'm the only qualified one in the team. I'm the one that loves all the extreme weather. I'm the one that's the one always chasing it and always looking for it. I've got quite a few contacts over the years as well, all over Europe and all over America, but they're more into the Cornwall weather and everything, where me, I just do my normal stuff I do on our Facebook page, but I'm more into my extreme stuff myself. I find myself when it's sunny, warm, normal day, boring. For me, that weather is everyone else is out and enjoying itself and loving on the beach. But to me, that's boring weather because it's just the same. It's just the norm. I'm looking for the next storm to come in. I'm always looking ahead thinking, oh, is that possibility of a thunderstorm? Where other team are like, stop it, Dave. Just like enjoy the better weather while you can. It's going to be winter soon. And I'm like, no, it's too boring.
Love that. Debbie's just put another comment in the chat about the Southwest Centre of Excellence satellite applications, but we'll get to that a bit later on, not to have everyone else hang around with just networking, I guess. Roger, you've got your hand up again. Is that another question?
I have, David, again? Thank you. Clearly, Dave, you're not the kind of person we need to go for a walk with because there's only one focus on the walk. I've got a slightly facetious question for you. But based on your knowledge of the data relating to lowest rainfall and highest mean temperatures and sunshine hours in Cornwall, where's the best place to live in Cornwall if you want really good weather?
If you want more dry weather, but it could be foggy, it's more the west of Cornwall. So you like your St Ives, down that end, that's your warmer areas, but they do get a lot more fog though. But St Just, anywhere from Penzance up, that's your not too bad. So more West Cornwall. The warmer temperatures are more North Cornwall or East Cornwall, like your Bude, Launceston, up that area, because they're sort of away from the more chilly winds. So it all depends what you want really. If you want the more dry weather, you go more to the west. You want the more warmer weather, you go to the east. But if you stay to the west, you're prone to fog. That is the biggest downfall to there, because they're more warmer down that end. They do get a lot more fog and mist. But if you really do want some lovely tropical weather, live on the Old Scilly. We've actually had that opportunity last year. We went across there for a week, and it was October and I was in shorts and t-shirt all week. It was just, even though it was only 13 degrees, I was actually burning. It's so hard to explain to anyone. The Old Scilly would be the best place to go to because it's quite warm all year round. I don't think they've had frost in about 5 years. And when it did snow, in the Old Scilly, they let the children have a day off of school as well. So they could go and play on the beach in the snow. That's the strangest thing.
Nice. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Devi suggested in terms of best place in Cornwall to live, Mullion, which I'm guessing she likes the warmth and doesn't mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
It can get windy down that area as well. It's sort of a little peninsula. They sort of stick out a little bit, so they catch the wind down there. Especially if they get the southwesterlies, they really do catch it down there.
I've seen Jessie has her hand up as well. Did you want to ask a question?
Sure, thank you. And thanks for the brilliant presentation as well. I found it really interesting. Just hearing about what you do, and you're obviously very passionate as well, which is brilliant. I just wanted to ask, because my angle really is satellites that I'm interested in. How have you found getting that satellite data from, you say some of it's from America? Have you found it's quite easy, that there's quite a lot of information sharing, or has it been a little bit more difficult?
It has been really difficult for us to obtain it. A lot of it is sort of more secrecy, and you've got to know people to know that person to get hold of the data. And we use a lot of the free sites because a lot of it is wrapped up, and you've got to be, this person will know that group. So like SAC24 is our biggest one we use. And so we're trying to get more satellite data as much as we can, because it would help us with like the weather. It just really would.
Awesome, thanks.
No problems.
Thanks, Dave. So we've got another couple of questions in the chat there, actually. I'm gonna go to Heather's question, who's asking something very pertinent now. Will we get thunderstorms soon?
That is the hardest one to predict, is thunderstorms and snow. At the moment, it's more Kent, London and that area, which probably get the thunderstorms tonight and tomorrow. It's looking that way. That's what the charts were looking at this morning. For Cornwall, I think it might be a few more weeks with it. And they're so hard to predict. They really are, because you need such a setup for a thunderstorm. You've got to have your lift, you've got to have, the downpours. It's so much. You need your warmth is your biggest one, you need humidity. So then you get your bubbles of hot air what go up. That's your lift. Then you get humidity, then your downpours, then you've got them three. It goes on and on and on just to get that one flash of lightning. So at the minute, I'm afraid, no. I'm saying no, not at the minute. We just need a bit more warm ground temperatures. So when you start getting later on in the year, then the ground temperatures are warmer, so then we'll start seeing them.
Great, thanks. You nicely mentioned all the different ingredients and everything that comes together, giving us a little bit of an insight into your thought process behind it. I like that.
Yeah.
So there's another few. Oh, Heather's happy about that because Heather's off camping. So
no, you're
great.
fine. You're fine. It might be a little bit windy, but not too bad. It's nothing what we haven't had before.
Yeah. So as long as we've still got some questions trickling in, I'm just going to continue feeding them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
So earlier when you mentioned that the Isles of Scilly have the best weather or the warmest weather in Cornwall, Devi wondered what about the sea level rise on the Isles of Scilly though?
That is the biggest threat to the Isles of Scilly. Like I said, our friend lives over there, and I was only talking to her a few days ago about it. Once the sea levels start rising, a lot of the off islands, the little islands, will just disappear. They will no longer be there anymore. And then you've got the main one, St Mary's. And if you've ever been there on the Slonian, when you walk off, you've got the town beach. Opposite the town beach as well, it's a very low and it's very flat. And we're only talking about an extra 3 or 4 inches of sea to rise, and that will start going through the whole town and to the other sides. And when I was speaking to her, their low tides, when they used to get the ready spring lows, they could do 5 islands, and now they can only do 1, and that's within 6 years.
Wow.
So they used to be able to do 5 islands. They used to do a 5 island challenge. As soon as the spring tides come, twice a year, the tides were so low enough they could do a 5 islands. It walked right across, there was no sea, and now they can just do 1 island. That's all they've got left now, because it's not that low. It's generally even the spring lows are not that low enough. And then they get the spring highs, they get that, and then they get a storm come in, and they start putting up their storm protection systems, especially around parts of the Isles of Scilly. So I reckon I give it 5-6 years, and maybe less. I think parts of the Isles of Scilly will be in trouble because the seas are rising now and they are getting warmer.
Yeah, that's crazy. Such a fast time scale as well for a and like that, right? Within 5 years, you can't walk between them anymore at the low spring tides.
Yeah, you've got 5 years and they've lost 4 islands they can't walk through. within a few more years, they probably won't be able to do another island on the low springs, and that's how it's impacting there quite a lot, because they're quite low lying, their islands as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm just skimming over the questions that I've written down in between you chatting, and I think we've covered most things in the discussion. I've got one more thing that I wanted to ask though about your about the team behind the Kernow Weather Team, basically. Seeing as you've got such a big following now and you're so responsive to everyone's comments, I was wondering, how big is your team behind it?
So there's me, who's like what we call the head of Kernow Weather Team. Then I've got my wife, who backs me up. She doesn't do much on the page. She does a lot on Twitter, but she helps me a lot with my stuff. I write notes down and like translate that for me so you can understand that and I can write it up. And it looks all like I'm writing in different languages, because I would try to explain it to everyone, the scientific side of it. Then I put it down to understand why it's going to rain. So there's me, and then there's the lady on the Isles of Scilly who just does the Isles of Scilly, and she does the tide times for Cornwall. She does the Isles of Scilly weather. Then I've got two other ladies who does the general forecast for the whole of Cornwall. I'm trying to think how many I've got more then. I've got David, he's on there as well, but he works full time. So we had him through the lockdown. He helped us, but now he's gone back to work. He helps us at weekend. So in general, I think there's about seven of us for 32,000 people. It's not too bad.
That's some very impressive work you're doing, I'd say.
Yeah, and like I said, when we first started, it was just a hobby. Yeah. It was just a little tiny little hobby just for friends and family. That's all it was. Like we just do that. Then it got shared to that one, that person. Then we got to 500 people and we're so excited. And we was like, oh, we got 5. Then like 5 years down the line, we're 32, nearly 33,000. And we're like, oh, this is getting a bit too big. And you don't realize it, what 32,000 people are. And like what my wife says, if you stand up in a football stadium with 32,000 people stand there looking at you, that's what's relying on your weather forecast. And I'm thinking, oh yeah. And our biggest ever reach we've had on one post was our red weather warning and our live feed. It had over 1.7 million reach. So 1.7 million people saw my live feed, and I'm like, oh no, this is like...
That's definitely more than just in Cornwall. That's, yeah.
Yeah, we had people asking questions from all over the UK, because it's our page we get, they're not just from Cornwall, we've got people from Australia, they're all over the world, they're from all over UK, all over the world. And now and again we get people pop up, ask us, I know you're in Cornwall and I'm in America, or I'm in Mexico, but can you tell me what the weather's going to be like? And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. Let's go and try and get this one right. And I'll do my best what I can. I'll explain. I'm like, you're like 7,000-8,000 miles away from me. Then a few days later, it went, oh, wow, you was more accurate than our own weather service. Thank you. I'll ask again later. And I think, oh, here we go. No, please, we don't start doing over there.
Oh, sounds great. Sounds like you like a good challenge as well, though.
Yeah, we do. I do.
Yes.
It is, like I said, weather's got to be the challenging thing, that it really does, because 1 minute it could be sunny, 30 seconds later, as you pretty well know in Cornwall, it would probably rain, be foggy, then the sun's back out again. And it's so hard to predict. And you always get someone or people ask, what time will it rain? Will it rain at 2 o'clock? You can say between 1 and 3. You can be, yeah, it will rain between 1 and 3, but we can't put a time on the rain because we don't have access to our own Doppler, which would be quite handy, which I have looked into that one as well, our own Doppler, but I don't know how it works on UK bands. And we haven't got the funding as well. And all they are, it's quite a simple idea. And I've looked into this. Boats have Doppler radars on top of their masks, and they can do 60-mile radius. If I put one on top of my weather station is up really high, on my weather station, I wonder if that would actually work so we could have our own Doppler. That's something else we're thinking about as well. Would that work from our house? Or do we need some sort of special licensing because it's not out at sea? I don't know.
Well, thank you very much. You've definitely got big ambitions there, doing
Oh
great
yeah,
work
most
now.
definitely.
I think I'm going to wrap up at this point, actually, as we've had you on for quite a while. We've got people dropping out every now and then. But thank you so much, Dave. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Some great questions posed. Devi, I'd suggest if you can stay on just for a minute, just so we can talk about what you've put. If not, no problem at all. I'll just feed it through to Dave and put you in touch afterwards. Otherwise, now I'm going to quickly put the same links into the chat again that I already had. So we've got another virtual Cafe Sci next month on the 13th of June, I believe. It might be the 15th. But you'll see that on our through our mailing list. Otherwise, we've got our in-person wildlife and microplastics cruise leaving from Falmouth Harbour on the 3rd of July. If you want more info, you can click on that link in the chat as well. Great. At this point, then, I'm going to, as is our virtual Cafe Sci tradition, invite everybody to unmute themselves so we can give Dave a big round of applause for this fantastic talk and answering all our questions.
Thanks, David.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. See you next time.